Welcome everybody. I appreciate everybody coming. Um, this is a kind of, I don't want to say you're guinea pigs, but this is actually kind of a experiment for me. Um, so let me introduce myself first and kind of explain how this course came to be. Um, oops. So my name is Hal Pomeranz. Some of you, we may have met before, or may have seen some of my stuff online. Um, I've been doing this a really, really long time. I actually got, paid to work on computers for the first time in 1985. I actually had a work study job as an undergraduate, providing PC support for the administrative departments of my school. So I was like a help desk person, right? Um, and I've been working with computers actually much longer than that. I bought my first computer at age 11 with my paper route money, if you can believe that. It was an old TRS-80. Um, but anyway, I've been working in the industry for almost 40 years at this point. In 1997, kind of during the peak of the whole dot-com thing, I started my own independent consulting business. Um, and initially I was doing kind of IT support work, security engineering, network engineering, and that kind of thing. But over the years, my practice has shifted much more to be doing incident response work, digital forensics, and some expert witness work. So, the only thing constant is change. And I've been a lot of different things in my career. Now, I'm old enough to have gone to school at a time when computer science wasn't really as much of a discipline as it is now. And so my degree is actually in math. I'm a math major with a minor in computer science. The school I went to did not have a formal major in computer science at the time. But the math stuff is going to help us here because there's some math underlying this whole thing that I can kind of help guide you through. You have my contact information here on the slide. It's also on the last slide in the course. That really is my email address. And that's my Mastodon handle. So please, if you have questions after class is over, or you're reviewing the recording and you have a question, please feel free to reach out via email or, one of my socials and, ask your questions. I get questions from random people on the internet all the time. I mean, why shouldn't I answer questions for you, my former students? Um, Also, if you want to connect to me on LinkedIn, that email address will allow you to connect to me. I'm pretty promiscuous with my LinkedIn connections. So if you want to sort of leverage my network, please feel free to connect to me on LinkedIn. The other thing that I wanted to say is you'll notice down here, all of this courseware, and in fact, all of the courseware that I create now is available under Creative Commons license. So if you found this course interesting and you want to, share it with a colleague or maybe an enemy, please feel free to do so. As long as you preserve attribution to me, you can do with these courseware whatever you want. And if you want to try teaching a class from it, more power to you. It's important to me. When I was coming up in this industry, I was lucky enough to have worked with some really pretty amazing mentors. And the understanding was that, when I got to this point in my career, that I would sort of pass the knowledge along to the next generation. And a lot of us don't get an opportunity to work with that kind of mentorship environment anymore. Many people are kind of, army of one at their job. And so this is the way that I'm trying to get that information out there and pass it on to, sort of that next crew of people that are coming up behind me. Because I may not be able to, be in the same working environment with you and sort of stand over your shoulder and hit you with the clue by four kind of thing. So I really try and put that information out there as widely as possible. And if you're looking for more of my stuff, more of my courseware and things like that, I have a personal blog, and I'm going to put that into the resources channel. So if you head on over to Righteous IT, there's a resources page there, which not only has links to all of my courseware, but it also has links to articles that I've written and presentations that I've given and things like that. Including, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the resources page, some career development advice and things like that I've written in the past. So I hope you find those resources useful. They're there whenever you wanted. Okay. So like I said, this class, it was kind of an experiment for me. But obviously enough people were interested to sign up, so that's great. So, I got to thinking about fundamental skills, right? Things that I guess are just sort of assumed knowledge in our sort of rarefied profession. And just basic things like, how does TCP/IP work, and how does internet routing work and things like that, or DNS, or all of these kinds of core things. And I thought, I've run into plenty of people who, for whatever reason, are working in this industry and maybe don't have such a good grasp of some of these fundamentals. And so, and one of those fundamentals that I often run into people having difficulty with is just basic kind of binary encoding and decoding and hexadecimal, and maybe even bit shifting and masking and all of those things. And so I thought, this is something I'm pretty familiar with. Let me throw together a course in this like really fundamental skill and see if that's interesting to people. And I'm sort of gratified to see that it was interesting to people enough to sign up for this. And I wanted to make the price point something, reasonably affordable. Maybe you're trying to, transition your career, maybe you're just starting out. I didn't want to charge, hundreds or thousands of dollars. I just wanted to make like kind of a little bite-sized intro to a fundamental subject that was affordable for people. And so here we are. And I thank you very much for coming and going on this journey with me, and we'll see how it works out. So why this class? Why do I think binary is such a fundamental skill? This is something that you need, I think, regardless of where you are in the technology industry, a kind of basic understanding of how binary works and its relationship to hexadecimal and things like that is really fundamental for so many different professions. Assembly programming, exploit development, that sort of thing. You're going to be looking at data in hex all the time, and you need to understand how bytes work in memory, and how to decode opcodes and data in assembly language programming. You're looking at it in IDA Pro or a debugger. So it's really critical for that. Similarly, reverse engineering malware, whether statically or dynamically, definitely an important skill. I do more forensics these days than anything else, and I am constantly looking at hex dumps of different data structures, inodes on disk, low-level file system data, that kind of thing. I sort of dream in hex at this point. And people sort of jokingly think of me as the guy who spends his life looking at file systems in a hex editor, but it's a useful skill if you really want to start doing very detailed low-level forensics, or if you want to do forensic research, which of course I do a lot of. People who are doing threat hunting, looking at packet traces on the wire, interpreting packet data, interpreting log data, and those sorts of things. SOC analysts, same thing. You may be looking at packet traces on the wire, or decoding information from your EDR system. I remember as a network admin, I was constantly looking at packets. System admins, again, maybe doing low-level analysis with a hex editor. So being able to quickly recognize and decode patterns in binary and hex is actually really a very fundamental skill. And yet, it seems like at this point, we kind of expect people to pick it up through osmosis, I guess. I don't think that any computer science program anymore, just sits you down and says, okay, this is a byte and these are some bits and this is how you interpret this, and this is the way memory works, and this is how you relate binary to hexadecimal, and all of these different things. I just think that somehow you're expected to know this, or maybe watch a bunch of random YouTube videos and pick up things here and there. And I thought, well, that's shameful. We really ought to have a curriculum point, or at least a small workshop that explains to people how all this works from like sort of beginning to end as one concise piece of information. And I thought, yeah, I can write that course. And so I wrote that course. And now you have a copy of that course, hopefully downloaded from my GitHub. And we're just going to go through it.